I hear a horn beep. Was that you, Ed?
No,
No?
I don't think. I don't think.
Maybe that was somebody here at the funny farm. I hear a horn beep.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh, we got a big echo.
No, you're good. I'm just sharing it on Facebook.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, friends, Romans, and countrymen, thank you for giving us both of your ears this Friday afternoon. We have a Jim Dandy, that's a lot, a Jim Dandy show scheduled for you. We have with us from San Diego, California, by the way of phone, Christina Laster. Christina, how are you doing?
I'm great. How are you guys doing today?
I'm doing good. And we have Mr. Ed Temple out of Columbus, Ohio. How are you doing, Ed?
The Bucks doing just great.
All righty. Friday afternoon at the funny farm. But a very, very serious discussion that we're going to have this afternoon. Before we go any further, we have to bring Dude on. So, ladies and gentlemen, here is Dude. And that is Dude. Christina, did you get to see Dude?
Hello.
Did you get to see Dude?
Yes.
We only make him
Playing the drums.
Yes. We only make him work 30 seconds every time we go live. So he has the life of Raleigh here at the Funny Farm. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Christina by phone. Let me put her picture up here real quick. We have her by phone because she has had technical difficulties where she's located with her internet service. So we did the next best thing. We brought Christina on by the way of telephone, and hopefully the next time she comes on, we'll have her up on the screen. She's going to be
yes, that's my hope.
she's going to be a regular with us, and so hopefully we get this internet situation straightened out. But she'll be a regular with us, and she'll be on all the time with us, and we'll be discussing many, many, many things. I got to do one more thing before we get into this. It's my friends in Warren, Pennsylvania, from the White.
Providing a great cup of coffee and a better life for the blind and disabled. White Cane Coffee, because every cup makes a difference.
That, ladies and gentlemen, is White Cane Coffee. And you can go to Facebook, look them up, White Cane Coffee, and you can order a coffee. They'll deliver it right to your house. Check them out. You'll like it. We get it here all the time. So, Miss Christina, may I ask you, what is happening in your world?
You know, the battle over our children's minds still rages on, and, you know, basically fighting for that quality education for those that are trapped in failing schools. And then me as a homeschool mom, you know, just maintaining my right to homeschool because we have to watch all angles of this thing. And it's an unrelenting battle for our children to be able to have their education in a way that is not corrupted.
I titled this thing this afternoon, "The Battle Rages On." Because, because it's interesting. As the school choice movement picks up momentum, so does the fight. Do you agree, Ed?
Oh, for sure. And, you know, I was going to ask Christina whether she was heading to South Carolina with the Powerful Parent Network.
Did you hear that, Christina?
A little bit. Can you repeat it for me?
Yeah, I was wondering whether you were going to join the Powerful Parent Network. I think that's the name of it. Where are they headed? South Carolina.
You know, you can kind of relate. If it's Ed, hi Ed from sunny California.
Hello.
And though I couldn't hear him,
All right.
I'm.
He was asking you if you're going to join the Powerful Parent movement. I've been trying.
You know, I am. It's like we are family, right?
Mhm.
So their movement, other parent movements. I support all of the movement for our children, because what we're saying together in unison is this is our child. Hands off our children, right? In negative ways, and using them just to fund the system, but not adequately providing education for them in that system. And what we're saying is that as parents, we have the fundamental right over our children to choose what's best for them. And so that's where you see the battle, the biggest, is that the pushback is no, the government thinks they know what is best for our children. And we're saying as parents, no, our voices cannot get eliminated from this conversation, and our voices cannot be snuffed out. As a matter of fact, any plan that you guys come enact should include our purview as parents, because these are our children. But what you typically are finding is very opposite, right? Just, you know, and so I support the parent movement across this nation that are standing up, fighting back, and saying enough. The system has failed, and here is where we draw the line.
Weren't you just at a Powerful Parent movement thingy yesterday or the last couple of days?
So I travel across California, and that actually was not one of the parent movements, but what you're talking about. But every week I go across California and basically educate parents as far as what their rights are. You know, the webinar was one of those things, the ways that I do that. Also, hear what the students are saying, so that their voices are triangulated into this discussion too, because by the time you're in high school, you understand what's going on with you, and you understand the way you've been treated. And so we can't discount the voice of the students, right?
Right.
And then, you know, just going into broken, failed, and we're talking generationally failed communities to restore hope. That's what I do. And so having the right to choose what's best for your life and your child, that brings hope. When you're stuck in failure and someone's constantly got their foot on your neck, that's not hope. And so how do we find ways to have that true freedom? Education is one of those modes of being able to have access and opportunity. And so, you know, that's what I do. And so when you see me in other places, like the picture that you showed, it's out of the need to bring awareness and an action plan, an executable plan of what are we as parents, we the people, going to do about this.
Ed, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think, well, first off, it's nice to, you know, to have folks that are actively involved in this. Christina is very actively involved. There are others that are doing similar things, like I mentioned the Powerful Parent Network. I just wish that it was not, at least in the case of the Powerful Parent Network, they seem to only be interested in one political party. I just wish this was not a party issue. Instead, it was a kid issue. You know, I understand their fight is for kids, but they're only barking up one political side, and that political side is not moving much. You know, they're not moving the needle. Matter of fact, they are doing the opposite. They're doubling down on national television, and so that's clearly their voice is not validated with the political party right now. So they need to maybe look for alternate means. Maybe, I mean, there's a slew of parties that would love to have a voice. It doesn't have to be the Republican Party. It could be the Libertarian Party. It could be the Constitution Party. It could, but then instead of, it should not be a political football. It should be a universal. If they're always talking about universal rights, universal rights should start with the right of a child, and so we should be looking what's in their best interest.
Christina,
Yes.
along those lines, I forget who I was talking to, what show it was. I don't know if it was radio or this one or last week, but whomever I was talking to, we were discussing the problems of different things. And, you know, there is a simple solution, but what has happened, instead of us, when the problem occurs, instead of us nipping it in the bud, and you mentioned it just a few minutes ago about what was it? Come on, Espinlab. Anyhow, anyhow, it'll come to me. I hope. But instead of nipping it in the bud when it happened, and you said years and years and years of this mess. Now, where there's a simple solution in the center, there's all these obstacles that we have built up over the years because of this and that and all the other things involved. So instead of solving one simple problem, now we got to clear the forest out of all the debris and get things right again. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, you know, it reminds me of Bill Tackett and the Truth Project, right? And so he talks about state sovereignty and how we have little by little handed over all of our foundational and fundamental rights to the state, and they've just become way too big. Entity that shouldn't be ruling over what's happening in our households, right? What's happening in this arena, that arena. And we can see that has totally been suffocating the education system. Parents' voices are snuffed out. The actual needs of the children aren't being met. And if the education system is designed to create good, quote unquote, state citizens, then what do you expect? And so what I teach parents is that they don't get another opportunity, and the state shouldn't have sovereignty over the realm of how they train up their children. That's just overreaching for government. And that is where you do need to stand up and fight back, right? You know, because these are our children. They only get one opportunity to be trained up during their childhood. They will spend 18 years as a child, but the rest of their life in adulthood. So what is that going to look like? Is that going to be state controlled? Are we creating robots here, right? I want my children to be able to have enough wisdom, knowledge, and understanding to be able to think independently without any kind of outside governmental force, you know, basically exploiting that thought process or inserting or supplanting that thought process. And so, yes, we have allowed for the government to have control in areas, in spheres that they should not. And now it's time for us to, the people, one by one, all of us together, to say enough of that. This is where we draw the line. And people try to box this in as well. You know, when it comes to kids, and this is why I love working for and serving for our children and generations. When it comes to kids, people try to box this in. Is that Democratic or is that Republican? No, this is humanitarian, right? What is happening with our children is a human dignity and respect, a life, a respect for their lives and livelihood. It doesn't have anything else political attached to it. We're talking about the most vulnerable people in our population who are depending on us, who are totally dependent on us for everything. And how are we treating them? And what is our future going to look like if we're treating them bad here, right? And so I always talk about this from a humanitarian perspective first, because we need to respect that these are people, our children are people, human dignity and respect, and they deserved the best, not just crumbs and, other things thrown at them.
Ed, you posted something this morning. Our man Ed, Christina, he's always posting stuff. Between you two, you keep me busy all day long. Twitter, Facebook, and every time I turn around, you guys are posting something. But Ed, you posted something today, and forgive me if I sound like a babbling idiot, but maybe it'll strike a recall in your mind about the young people. So you posted something, and somebody wrote the people from ages 18 to 25 are buying into this. Do you remember that? Or buying into?
Yeah, I do. So, what I was getting at was that, it used to be in this country where if you were you would distance yourself from communists, and so now we have a particular candidate that is singing the praises. Now, I will admit that the other folks on the panel are that they're calling him on it, calling him to the carpet for it, but he's praising dictators and then turning it around, spinning it to that making the equivalence with the United States. So we have a gentleman that's running for president that clearly has antipathy towards his own country and is supporting communist dictators. And this guy here wants the government takeover of our health care as well as of our education system. Meanwhile, as a political party, they're saying the same thing. And this is where I have a real problem, because, I have tried over and over again to find just one politician, just give me one, that is a persuasion other than libertarian, Republican, or independent, that will put their voice out there and say unequivocally that they support school choice. And I have, inboxed and emailed and tried to call them out, and not one has shown any interest at all, which is shocking to me.
Let me say this, and then I'm going to play a little clip for you. But Christina, Ed, I had a gentleman on Wednesday. I think Ed was with us, out of New Jersey, and this whole issue has always riled me up. I've always been passionate about it, but since Wednesday, since I had our live stream with Lee McNulty out of New Jersey, I have been troubled. I mean, my spirit, I don't know any other way of describing it. My spirit is troubled. And I said all that to say this. There is this, and I put it up last time you was on, Christina. How to Create a Social State by Saul Alinsky. There it is. Take over the health care, keep poverty out there, debt, let it rise, gun control, welfare, education. And you said it a while ago, Christina, of how these schools have been failing for years. For years. It just didn't happen overnight, but they've been failing for years. Take control of what people read and listen to. Take control of what children learn in school. And then consequently, over the years, and I believe this was a planned attack. Over the years, this is what we end up with. Do you agree with that or disagree with that?
What I would like to say is we need to question our process of thinking as far as, are they really failing? Are they doing what they're designed to do, right? And what I mean by that is, if you create a system of uniform education, system of uniformity, right? That system cannot support every child's modality of learning, even if they try innovative ways of inserting what they call school choice as magnet, gate, and cluster AP programs. That's all fine and dandy, but there's going to be a large percentage of children that are neglected in that. What about the children with special needs, right? What about the children that have dyslexia, right? And I have my group of moms that I totally support with their movement about dyslexia and their FAPE violations. And then what about the gifted children who are overlooked and also overpunished, right? Where is the supports for that? It's like there's a chosen few that have access and opportunity, and everyone else just needs to sit in their chair for 6 hours a day. Well, I've done even extensive studies showing that boys, really are not meant to sit for 6.5 hours of a day in a seat trying to learn under the system of uniformity. And the reason why I did that was because, looking at my son and my grandson's experiences through the education system. And so people can also look at that. And I'm not, so there's going to be a level of bias for one, when we're talking about a system of uniformity. What is it that they're trying to create and control? And again, I call these good citizens, right? And then if I look at it from my purview as a Black woman, well, we didn't even enter into the education system until 1960s, right? Really formally, even though there was a court case that was done before in the 50s, but it was not actually adhered to until 10 years later, right? And what has that looked like for us for the whole 56 years? Well, it has looked like ultimate failure for the most part. We're talking about the masses. So is the traditional education system truly failing, or are they doing what they're intended to do? Is the real question.
Ed?
And so when you think about it that way, no, they're doing their job, which is to not create access and opportunity for all children, even though they say all children. And we need to be aware of what we can do to take back our rights as parents and educate our own children. And that's why I homeschool. So I can't really say they're failing. I'm saying that was pretty much their agenda from day one, and they're doing what they're supposed to do. But we need to be willing to say enough and create something that is meaningful and foundational and lasting. And school choice brings that hope. And that's why I support it.
Ed?
Yeah, she's spot on. The original model of the American education system was modeled after a military-type nation-state of Prussia. So it is definitely one that is more designed for people to fall in line and mass-produce education, and it's especially because of over-testing, which is the problem I have with the argument now in Ohio, for example. I know it's probably all across the country, but you're getting people that are saying, we need to stop school choice because those private schools don't have as many restrictions as we do. And my argument back would be, quickly, then you need to get less restrictions too, because you're failing. And restrictions create failure, because when you're overburdened with regulations and stipulations and testing, your school becomes studying for the test or preparing for a test rather than education. It becomes becoming a test taker, and that's not exactly conducive to having citizens that are able to think on their feet, to process information, and so on. So right now, the mass education system, because of over-testing, you have schools all over the country dropping their electives, which are give kids incentive to come to school, and those that are good at those electives are the better students in the first place. And so you're taking away all the incentives to come to school, and then you wonder why, that when they come to school, they're learning, that there's this theory that teaches them that there's no God and that evolution is a fact, and so therefore they're just another animal that has no soul, that they're purposeless, and then once they're taught they're purposeless, and then there's no fun because you're supposed to sit in your chair and not get out. You're not supposed to move around. You're not supposed to learn how to build anything. You're just supposed to get out some sheets of paper and do a worksheet. And so, of course, kids don't look forward to coming to school. The over-testing and the overburdens are killing the school system. And besides that, the fact that the government schools have a monopoly on education. So they have a virtual monopoly. 88% of school students right now are stuck in public schools and largely failing public schools. And that number is supposed to increase. That people are moving to cities more and more than moving, let's say, out into the rural areas. And so this number, unfortunately, unless something's done to alleviate it. Now, there's a lot of school choice momentum, but right now, like I said, you have a political party that's not willing to budge. Until we get that party to budge, or until people vote for an alternative candidate, ultimately the answer lies in our politicians, because, and I'm not talking about just nationally, even within local municipalities, we have way too many hands in the pot. Education should be a local issue and not somebody from the federal government telling the local community how to run their show. First off, it's unconstitutional, and it's backfiring because you can't have a one-size-fits-all as far as this nation goes and as far as education goes. Some kids, they might want to become a plumber, and it's, sticking them in a classroom to teach them about a non sequitur, class, it's maybe not the best thing for them. We have students maybe that they can't, they're not very good at whatever, maybe they're great musicians, yet they only have one band class that they can attend, because the classes are full, because they have to teach to the test, in the schools, for example, nowadays, they'll shut down to teach to the test. And so very little creativity in the classroom, because teachers have literally right now, in Ohio, for example, they're trying to script education. They've started off with a course as a state course that if you teach it, it's scripted by the minute. And so that's the back door for one course. And now the biggest district in Ohio is deciding whether they're going to script all their courses. And so each teacher and each school will be teaching at the same time, the same amount of time, without any creativity at all. Scripted education, that's where they're headed.
Christina, you mentioned it. You approach parents and you approach students. What's some of the comments that you get or feedback that you get from parents?
And I want to really quick speak on the testing that Ed was talking.
Mm-hmm. Did we lose you? Christina, are you there? Hello.
Yeah, Ohio has been switching tests and taking away and adding more, and the whole testing system. There you go.
Okay.
Back on.
My phone disconnected. So I wanted to really talk briefly about the testing and the criteria of teaching a test that Ed was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
It really it's a double-edged sword, because it depends on what I've been able to do and what we've been able to do is look at the testing in a way that it holds accountability, right? What is happening locally, statewide, and nationally to our students, and how much of a deficit are they at? But the lack of enforcement and accountability then is the problem as well, right? So you have where different modalities of learning are not supported. And you can see it actually through, there's some structural institutional issues that you actually can see reflected in the data that comes out of tests, that makes it a double-edged sword. Like, yeah, we don't like our kids being taught to test. Like, that's not okay. But here is the data again, and we see that, yeah, you guys are making progress, right? So that's what makes it kind of bittersweet. I'll just put it like that. When I talk to the children, what I found is that there were so many things happening to them that really school became the trauma for them. School became the trauma. It became this experience that, you know, kind of keeps them from wanting to be lifelong learners. Like, you become numb. Like, I just have to make it through the day. I just have to, you know, assimilate and do what is required of me, get home, go to sleep, and do this thing all over again. So when school becomes a trauma, and I hear this word being tossed around all the time, let's do trauma-based or trauma-informed teaching because there's multi-layers of things happening with the kids. No, how can you guys teach trauma-informed when you're the trauma? You're the trauma to the kids, right? Mm-hmm. And so that doesn't make sense. And, you know, it's like these aromatic words that you hear, trauma-informed. You're the trauma. Are culturally competent, but you're not culturally competent, right? And so it's like you might as well hear those words and think opposite. Oh, they're speaking in opposites today is what I see. And you can see it because the things that are promised and the things that are talked about, they are not trickling down to the kids. And I have this saying, if it ain't trickling down to the kids, then you're lying. Mm. And that's just the bottom line. And so other than seeing something tangible, it's deceptive at best. And that's why I tell parents, you know, if this is your child's experience, and every day when you drop your child off at school, their stomach is hurting, they're nail biting, they're literally pulling their hair out. When they come home from school, they're sick, and they got to do it all over again. And you see that child fundamentally change from what you knew they were created to be into someone else. Please don't take your kid back there. Mm. That's toxic, harmful, and deadly to your kid. You might as well equate that with a poison symbol, right? Like, do not enter. But robotically, people just drop their kids off every day. Yeah. And never think of another way, right? Like, who says that kids are only supposed to learn in a building for 6 hours a day and they're supposed to learn these items? Who says that, right? Mm-hmm. Who says that this is the way that it has to be? Who says that you have to go to college at 18 and graduate by the time, 4 years later? Where are these timelines coming from? Who established this precedent that sticks in our heads that we just traditionally and robotically do it? And is that freedom? And is that liberty? What is that? Because to me, it seems like we've been trained to participate and do certain things without a thought. And you need to be questioning, parents need to be questioning, why? Why do I need to do that? Is that my reality? Do I have to do that, right? And until then, we can change our own thought process about the government-run school and the traditional education system. We are going to be stuck and have our kids stuck in this failure, and it doesn't look like there's going to be any tangible good coming out for the masses.
Very well put. Very well put. Wow. I like that. What's your thoughts, Ed?
No, I definitely agree with the Christina's thoughts on accountability. Definitely has to be accountability. I think that what happens is, though, and of course I've been teaching since 97. It's fun, or actually a little bit before that if you count pre-professional teaching. But since then, it's every year there's an added test, or this test didn't work, and a whole new this and that, and an easier And testing there needs to be some accountability, some testing for sure. But like for example, in high school, the ACT in Ohio is required for all 11th graders, and it's paid for by the taxpayer, which is fine because that is a test that covers 4 different subjects, and if you add, you can actually do the writing, so it could be 5 subjects. So that's a great high school test, but then you have to turn around and they have all this complicated numbering system that you have to pass all these other different tests along the way as well, for just about every grade level. And what ends up happening is, in particular in the public schools, is they shut down. There's the public schools in Central Ohio, for Columbus, for example, they'll shut down in some cases for a month at a time just to teach to the test. So by the time it's all done, they have maybe 2 or 3 weeks of actual instruction, and then the rest is just preparing, going through and doing simulations of the test. And so that's not education. And so that, it should be, if you're teaching in class, if the instruction is good enough, the test should, the kids, when they take a test, it should require them to think, process information. That's real world. But as it is right now, oftentimes, a lot of these tests are not measuring effectively, clearly. I mean, a kid graduates high school and they're turning around and they can't read or write. Well, that's definitely a problem. There should be, that should be a minimum standard. But, if Johnny can't read a table, a science table properly, but Johnny is an expert in math, I'm not going to be too upset, because guess what? I still can't read those science tables very well, and I have 3 degrees, okay? So the point is that, that we have to be, the over-testing can be overkill. On the other hand, schools must be accountable. Otherwise, you're graduating kids, and it reflects the system when a kid is, leaves out. Next thing you know, they're in remedial courses in college. So there definitely has to be a balance. But overbearing, that's why they need to, politicians probably once in a while might want to talk to the people on the ground level, like the teachers, instead of, them talking to each other. They might want to actually come in the classroom and have a conversation of, making things on a whim. Hey, we think we should add this test or that test, instead of, thinking it all the way through. Because I can tell you this, the schools that don't focus on testing are the ones that are producing much more effective students than the ones shutting down for testing. I can guarantee you that.
Christina, what are some of the things that the parents, when you approach these parents and tell them, look, you've got alternatives, what are some of the feedback? What are some of the feedback that you get?
For the most part, they're not informed about their alternatives, right? And they don't really know that these are viable options for them. And so I spend a lot of time in the grassroots and what I call the trenches, where I heard Ed say the politicians need to go talk to the teachers, where they need to really be focusing on what's happening on the ground level, what's happening with the rank and file that you're supposedly representing, right? And so they don't even really know about what their options are, how they can make those informed decisions, what would help their child to thrive and not just barely survive. And so that is when I spend time, not just telling them what their rights are as parents, but helping them to understand that they do have options, what that looks like. How can you get your child to, some of this is safety, right? We have safety issues where children are being harshly, excessively, punitively, and even abusively punished. You can see it all across the nation. Mm-hmm. And so what I tell parents is, even if you look at the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, at the bottom of that pyramid is health, well-being, and safety, right? It is our job as parents to make sure that our children are first healthy, well, and safe. Okay. Then let's talk about ways that we can help them to learn and thrive in their acquisition of knowledge. And when you come from a foundational part of giving that type of awareness, what I find is, for the most part, the parents haven't even been able to secure the well-being and livelihood in the educational environment of their children. Mm-hmm. That's a problem. It is a problem in a place where I wouldn't even drop my cat off in some of these places, let alone a caged bird, right? And so, it's that structural, harmful exploitation where you go in one way and you come out a way that you were never created or intended to be. And when I explain it that way, then everyone can connect and relate. And my next step is, let me help you first secure the well-being and safety of your child, the way, and then let's look at viable options to do that, to continually do that. And never send your kid into a place where they're going to get abused, harmed, mistreated, neglected. Because if the government deemed that we were doing that to our kids, CPS or Child Protective Services would be banging down our doors. Mm-hmm. But we can drop them off to the government and allow them to, it's hypocrisy and blasphemy, right? And so the politicians have no desire to talk to people that are going to share real life experiences, such as the teachers that are, having a difficult time in the educational environment. When they speak out, they basically need a whistleblower camp to protect them, because they get ostracized, isolated, segregated, you name it. It happens every day. I know them. And the parents that are actually having these real life experiences that are harmful and detrimental to their children's livelihood, well-being, and safety. Talk about the way that you're going to educate them, right? And so when I see a pattern and a history of these things, that it's purposely happening. It's not by accident. And the politicians, instead of embracing and welcoming, and I can't say all of them because I don't want to throw a blanket statement like all are always or never, right? There are always good people in high places, but there's always wicked people in high places too. And so, for the most part, they're doing their job by trying to snuff out the parents and the people that actually are speaking about right things. And that's what they do. And when Ed said they talk to each other, well, yeah, because that's what they do. But I'm looking for those people that are actually good and committed to human dignity and respect, that are actually going to do the right thing, right? Be hungry and thirsty for what's right, okay? And say that I'm going to be unrelenting and I'm going to oppose these people that are all around me, maybe trying to battle against me, but I'm going to do what's right for these kids, and I'm going to make sure that I make some generational decisions. And so when, to answer your question, when we talk to the parents, I have not met a parent yet that doesn't understand that there is a systemic issue. But making an informed decision, it looks a little bit different depending on where you're at. Mm. In California, we have multiple options, but in other states where I speak to parents out of, they don't. And navigating through those options, I try to give them a GPS, right? Let me help you. I'm going to be a GPS. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I don't want you taking all these long routes and side streets that's going to take way longer. Here is what you have available to you. So let me help you with that. And that's what I do.
I like that, Christina. You're a GPS. That's cool. I've never heard anyone explain it like that. Even Espinlove can understand that. You put that right down on the bottom shelf. I appreciate that. A GPS. She's a GPS. Now, here's what I want to see if I can group this all up here. We have politicians, teachers, parents, grandparents, guardians, children, and probably a whole host of other things. So here we got the whole ball of wax. There it is, right? The great big ball of wax. And around that ball of wax is all kind of stuff, uh, knitting and fuzz and anything else that can, you know, this ball of wax. Instead of just being a ball of wax, you got a ball of wax surrounded by a whole bunch of other stuff. Anything that comes along is attracted to that ball of wax. It just leeches on there. With all this, do either one of you feel before I ask you that question, let me take you here. It'll only take you a second. Uh, let me share this with you. This is a portion of the interview I had with Lee McNulty on Wednesday. This is what stuck with me and has really troubled me over the past several days. Let take a listen. It reminds me of. Now, I'm an old guy. I'm 71 and a half years old now. So I come from the old school. I tell the kids we used to go to school and our blackboard was the cave walls. They'd look at me like I got two heads. This is what it reminds me of. These teachers' unions, these administrators, the bureaucrats, and the list goes on and on and on. It reminds me like a bully in the schoolyard. I grew up in the city. I grew up in the schoolyard. And on any one given night when the weather was nice, you'd have 50, 60, 70 kids of all different ages hanging out in the schoolyard. That's where everything was settled. And yeah, you had bullies. They remind me of bullies in the schoolyard, uh, where they'll pick on the weak, they'll pick on the young, uh, they'll pick on those ones that they can intimidate until someone hauls off and busts them right square between the eyes. I know that's not politically correct, but I'm not either. But somewhere along the line, somebody going to have to dig their heels in. If or do you think that we're too far gone in the public school system to even begin to save it?
Yeah, I think we're too far gone because, again, it's all about statistics. It's all about students, and again, it's not all students. I don't want anybody to misunderstand that every student in the school I worked in was horrible. Absolutely not.
Right.
But it was just out of control where you get good kids turning into bad kids. But the bottom line is, with teachers, they're going to keep quiet. It's not like to dig their heels in and they know it's right and they know what's wrong. But for the most part, they have families, they have mortgages, they have bills, they got car payments. What are they going to do? Open their mouth and take a chance, and then all of a sudden foul up their family. Next thing you know, they're divorced. Just one thing after another. So they're going to keep quiet and do the best that they can.
Wow. That is that's some powerful stuff. Christina, I don't know if you got to hear much of that. Did you hear any of it?
Yes, I did. And he's spot on about the fact that the teachers don't really have the ability in some places and most places to speak out because that's their bread and butter, right? But, I would like to triangulate their experiences, the ones that connect with me. They are totally frustrated when trying to do the right thing. And I'm not saying all of them. I'm talking about the ones that want to do what's right and have been opposed, right? Mm-hmm. Trying to do the right thing and not being supported in doing the right thing. Getting told just to keep their mouths shut, right? Don't talk to the parents. If you have a problem, there's all kind of tricky ways that abuse of power takes place on full campuses, mandating that the teacher communicate only with the administration and when they know that this teacher is an advocate for children and parents, right? Keeping them out of the loop on certain meetings so they won't speak up for the best interest of the kids. I've seen it all, even down to framing a narrative about them and punishing them, right? And at those times, I wonder, where is their union support now, right? And so what you see is not only structural harmful exploitation that requires human capital, which is our children, that requires bodies for average daily attendance money, right? And but you also see a level of structural harmful exploitation of teachers that are paying dues and not being supported, but yet are supporting something that they might not even actually believe in supporting, right? And so that's a whole nother subject. Janice case supports the right for teachers to opt out of unions. And I'm sure that they will continue to get bullied and continue to get intimidated and continue to get threatened and harassed while trying to advocate on best practices for children. That's unfortunate, and it's an indictment against the traditional government-run schools.
Ed, your
because
thoughts?
You have teachers, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would agree. In the Janice case, yeah, even though it's supposed to give teachers the option to pull out of the union, what it does, effectively the way the unions have handled it is forcing teachers still to pay in. They just don't get the union benefits. So it's at least, and I can't speak for everywhere, but it hasn't worked out the way that the court, I'm sure, had planned for it. So there'll probably have to be another court case. But the bottom line is the way the union is they politicize everything. Not everything is about supporting one political party only. It doesn't matter what the issue is. It doesn't really matter what the beliefs of the candidates are. As long as they're one political party, that's where all the money goes. And so that's the way it was since I started teaching. So that's it. There had never been at any time one non-Democrat that they put money towards. Every single candidate they put money towards was a Democrat, and as if that's the only way they could get any support. And so that's, that alienates a whole lot of people that do not want to support certain policies. And so that, of course, it disenfranchises really a whole lot of people. And so, of course, at that point, if your union doesn't support you, you're not going to speak out against anything, because with the union against you and then you taking that and the school system against you, you're in a no-win situation. And so freedom of thought is squashed in the public schools if you're a teacher. Unless if you're coming from the left perspective, you're just fine. You can do anything you want pretty much. Literally, there's people that have committed crimes and you can keep your job. On the other hand, if you are on the other side of the fence, or in the middle even, you're in trouble if you let anybody know. And you'll be railroaded out of the school system in a heartbeat. And so that's the way the system is. As a matter of fact, when they have trainings for teachers, that's precisely, they let them know ahead of time, this is the name of the game. This is how we're playing it. If you don't agree with it, so be it, but you're going to find yourself in trouble. And they've been doing that ever since, like I said, I started teaching. So this is just kind of a spooky situation right now. You might as well say the teachers union literally adopted the Communist Manifesto. And I don't mean that lightly. I mean literally. I've read the Communist Manifesto and I've read the union constitution. It's nearly identical. And so it's pretty scary.
I'm not a big Voltaire or Voltaire fan. It's dangerous to be right in matters on which the established authorities, think about this, folks, on which the established authorities are wrong. Think about it. Let that sink in for a little while. The reason I played that clip, guys, was because since Lee said that, I have been troubled. Now, I mentioned the ball wax and then everything that gets all stuck to it and intertwined and wrapped up. And we've got a real mess. I mean, I don't know how to put it. I'm not a pessimist, but and I believe you can get out of something. But Christina, we got a real mess in this country.
I agree. And, really the ultimate freedom is by each person activating their right to choose, right?
Mhm.
That's freedom. And collectively, what will that look like? It might look small, like, okay, I'm just one person. But if every person says, I no longer choose to be in failure, and I no longer choose to allow you to fail me, so I'm going to do X, Y, Z, right? Then that creates a collective action that looks a little bit different. It's not just the one person in the West Coast or the one person in the South. And it's very hard for people to envision true freedom and true liberty when someone has their foot on their neck, okay? And so how do you do that? How can I, let me go, and then I can be truly free. But there's always a way to continue to battle effectively, but you have to get the foot off your kids' necks. Not say, don't send them into failure, systemic, oppressive failure, where they're not even coming out who they were created and intended to be. And that's why for a while I was saying, where are all the Quakers and abolitionists? Because, I don't want to talk to the politicians, right? I'm looking for people that are actually talking about real freedom, human dignity, respect, not a certain party, because I'm talking about children and they don't know party lines unless you've told them about it before. But they're coming in expecting for their well-being and livelihood to be fed, to be nurtured, to be loved, to be taught. And if we don't get this right, we'll be a whole bunch of older people, me, I'm 42, watching generations of just, what is the nation going to look like? Mm-hmm. What is their generation going to look like? How are they going to be able to even defend themselves without wisdom, right? And so it's really headed toward that direction, and I don't know what else to say besides take control of your individual situation, and together that will create collective action.
Ed?
I think that was as well as you can say it. The bottom line is we need to, it should not, kids in their education should not be a political issue at all. And it should be common sense that we should stand for school choice. I think part of the issue is that we have to change the dynamics. I think public schools, they say when you want school choice, they say you're taking money from us. Well, that's under the premise that it's their money to begin with. It's the taxpayers' money. It's not their money. You have to earn, the taxpayers' money by providing a service. And when that service is a bad service, like anything else, the money should be diverted or shifted to a place that's actually going to serve the kid. In some cases, in every study, Corey DeAngelis works for the Cato Institute, and what his research has said is that, not just his research, but peer-reviewed research, we're talking of thousands and thousands of students, is that school choice benefits the student and the school that has been introduced to competition. These schools benefit, the kids benefit, the crime rate drops, the graduation rate increases, the scores increase for everybody involved as a whole. So there's no argument against school choice. It actually literally saves the school districts money when they haven't been introduced to school choice. And overall, one of the other fears the union should not fear, which they do fear, is losing, at least the union members, the salaries literally for teachers. When they're introduced to school choice, they actually increase. And so all the hidden fears dissipate, and the benefit is overwhelming. And so there's no argument against school choice. And the politicians know it because they send their kids to private schools. And so we all know it. Everybody, it's just common sense. It's a matter of beating the resistance.
Wow. Christina, Ed, been a delight. I get to sit at the feet of two teachers, and they educate me That's I know that's not good English, but that's an Espanol word. They educate me.
Always a pleasure with you guys too.
And listen, Christina will be back. She's going to come back bi-weekly, every other week, and hopefully the next time you come back, Christina, your internet will be up and firing off.
Oh yes, definitely. I am very excited, anticipating the moment where it's fixed. Thank you.
I'll bet you are. We have
Right.
we have so much to discuss in the coming weeks and months, and all those good things. I got some things up here. If they stay up here, I just can't find them sometimes. That's why I have to write things down so quick. But I've got some things up here that I'm working on for you guys to see if you'd be interested in doing. And I think our audience would just love doing some of those things with us. So, Christina, it's been a delight. Thank you so very, very much. We'll stay in touch like always, and we'll plan for the next episode. Ed, thank
Great.
you.
You're
And
welcome.
we will constantly be in touch. Sometimes Ed and I are like two old ladies at a quilting party. More so me, more so me than Ed. I'll talk his ear off sometimes. But every time I get off the phone, I think, man, I talked that poor man's ear off. Now, don't do that next time, Espanol. The very next time, I'm right back at it. But we'll all keep in touch. Keep posting them things, guys. Keep people informed.
Definitely.
And let us all know. And ladies and gentlemen, get Ed's book, Escape from Uncle Sam's Plantation. It is a delight to read. It is common sense. Common sense. That's what it is. Common sense. You can get it at Amazon.com. Amazon.com. Ed Temple, Escape from Uncle Sam's Plantation. Wow. Thank you, guys. Love you both.
Appreciate it. Take care.
We got some good things coming down the road. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, friends, Romans and countrymen, join me tonight on the radio. Zach Day out of Mississippi. We had him on several months ago. He'll just rock your socks right off your feet, I'm telling you. He'll be live on the radio with us tonight at 8 p.m. That's 8 p.m. Eastern Time. He just cut some new songs, put together another EP, and he's coming on and he's going to introduce us tonight. It's almost like we got the exclusive. So he'll be on with us at 8 p.m. tonight, Zach Day. So, we'll post something up on the Facebook show page, and you can bounce off of that onto the radio show tonight. So thank you so very, very much for being with us. Start those watch parties. Get this thing out there, one person at a time. One person at a time. Listen to it again, watch it again, and I know it'll touch the very marrow of your soul. So, wherever you're at, if it's nighttime, have a great night. If it's daytime, have a great time. Or day, have a great day. If it's somewhere in between, whatever it is, I just pray that you'll be blessed. But wherever you're at, whatever time it is, remember these things. Love one another, be kind to one another, pat somebody on the back, smile at them, and don't ever be afraid to say, I love you. It could actually save a life. I trust that God will keep you right in the center of his hand. And until next time, see you later, everybody.